So welcome everyone. I am just going to figure out if I can adjust my screen a little bit here. So welcome everyone. Tonight we're going to talk about treat meals, why they're important. I hear from a lot of clients that they are very hesitant to give themselves treat meals. So I thought this was a really important topic to talk about tonight. If you're new to the Metabolic Balance program, and I see we've got a few people that are new on it, you'll know that you're not to have a treat meal for the first 2 weeks minimum. And I do encourage you to wait for the first 4 weeks before you have a treat meal. But everything that I'm sharing with you tonight will be usable when you get to that point. So I definitely want you to make sure that you take notes if needed, and certainly you can connect with me at the end of the lecture part of our webinar tonight. I am going to open up the microphones at the end and kind of have a live Q&A forum, so you guys can ask me any questions, whether it has to do with tonight's talk or whether it has something to do with something different altogether. I'm happy to give any help that I can. All right, so before we get started, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share my screen, and I will figure this out, guys. Forgive me for a moment. Let me just see here. All right, so what I'm going to do is I have a PowerPoint that I prepared just to help guide us and give a little more visual to the talk tonight. So I'm just going to share that now, and we'll dive right into that. So here we go. All right, so let's get started. Let's talk about treat meals and why they are important. We're going to discuss the 4 reasons why treat meals are beneficial, how often you should have treat meals, and hacks to make the most of your treat meals. And I think that's really important. Do you have treat meals on a regular basis? Because I hear from a lot of clients that they're frightened to have treat meals. So tonight we're going to dispel that, and we're going to talk about all the reasons why it's very, very important. Do you feel guilty after having that treat meal? Give me a thumbs up in the chat box and let me know, either privately or in the group chat, if you can relate. Just give me a thumbs up. Okay. So a few of you can relate. Okay. So let's dive in and sort out a couple of things. First, what's a treat meal versus a cheat meal? This is very, very important. We've got to sort this out right away, guys. And you'll hear me say treat meal all the time. I do not allow cheat meals. I don't allow that language, and there's a very, very important reason for it. So here's the definition of a treat meal. It's a single meal that veers from your planned diet pattern. A single meal that veers from your planned diet pattern. I also don't use the word diet a lot, in the sense that I don't believe in dieting, but what you eat is your diet, okay? So a single meal that veers from your planned diet pattern, period. That's it. It's a single meal off of your plan. Very simple. Let's talk about what a cheat meal is. The dictionary defines a cheat meal as to act dishonestly or unfairly in order to gain an advantage, to avoid something undesirable by luck or skill. So cheating involves breaking the rules, sneaking, hiding, beating the system, doing something you know you shouldn't, and skipping out on the consequences. Ick. I don't like that. Now it's not letting me. All right. So have you ever said these things? Oh, I'm not even going to tell you what I ate last night. I was terrible. Oh, it's time to get back on track. Oh, it's time for, to pay for your sins. I hear these all the time from clients, and then it leads into a whole discussion of confession. So I'm here tonight to tell you that we don't need to have confessions over a treat meal. But when you have this mindset, it's the mindset of a cheat meal. So don't get stuck in that mindset. It's such a negative self-talk. It's very debilitating. It might just sound like semantics, but the cheat meal has become something negative. It promotes the idea that you've been bad. It gives you regret and shame. And that's not at all the way it should be. So cheat meals promote overindulgence though, and that's the other aspect of having a cheat meal, because the idea of being bad often gives you the idea of cheating and getting away with it. You know, you may be gritting through a diet until you can finally get back to normal eating again. So that's really key there. And that's another reason why I don't use the word diet, because when you are dieting, it is not fun. You are going to die if you diet for the rest of your life. It's just not, it's truly not something you can do. So gritting through is not fun. And having that idea that this is a certain way of eating for now until you can go back to the way you were eating before is also not fun. And that's the mentality around cheat meals. So cheat meals can be the beginning of a really slippery slope. The negative mindset surrounding the cheat can easily open the door for a whole series of poor choices, right? We're all guilty of this, I know. And then, of course, you know, that poor choice often becomes just another poor choice. And then you're back to that whole diet mentality. It promotes that idea that you're deviating from a normal way of eating for a particular amount of time in order to achieve a desired result. So that's the cheat meal mentality. We're going to shake that tonight, guys. So have you ever said some of these things? I was already bad on Friday. What's done is done. There is no point in trying to get back on track Saturday. I'll be good on Monday. Subconsciously, it's reinforcing the idea that eventually when you reach your goal, you're going to go back to eating normal. And this is why so many people lose weight just to gain it all back again. We've got to shift that mindset. That mindset, it has to change. You have to start thinking lifestyle and create new favorite dishes and retrain the body to crave these new foods. That's just one aspect of shifting that mindset. Don't hold your breath and white knuckle through many miserable weeks until you see a certain number on the scale. You know, I hear that repeatedly, where clients, they are craving something like there's no tomorrow. Maybe it's a pizza, and they are entitled to have a treat meal. You know, with metabolic balance, we recommend a treat meal once a week. But they grit through, they are hating every minute of it, and all they're doing is living miserably. So what is the answer? Is it to never have a decadent meal? So you don't feel that way, so you don't feel guilty, so you don't feel like you're wrong or you've done something bad? Not at all. Absolutely not. We're all human. So let's talk about altering that mindset a little more. And I propose that we change that language that we're using. Instead of using the cheat meal language, let's say treat meal. Okay, now I've been doing this for a number of years, and I've purposely trained myself to talk about treat meals. So the definition of a treat from the dictionary, it's an event or item that is out of the ordinary and it gives great pleasure. An event or item that is out of the ordinary that gives great pleasure. That's a treat. No guilt, no shame, not bad, just out of the ordinary and it gives pleasure. Doesn't that feel much better than cheating? It's amazing. Like, to me, that's such a mental shift. And it's just the language and the language that surrounds what we are doing. So let me know if you guys have any questions so far at this point. I am open to verbal questions if you'd like. You can certainly type in the chat box if you'd like as well. You guys are good? Great. Okay. Oops. I'm struggling a little bit here. All right, so let's go back. So let's talk about the 4 reasons why treat meals are beneficial, or very, very important reasons. Okay. Number 1, a treat meal shocks your system. We tend to think that when we have a treat meal, we are doing a disservice to our body. And, you know, depending on what you choose, it might not be the healthiest item, and that's okay. But it's not going to do you a much greater service if you completely avoid having a treat meal. So how does it shock your system? Well, research shows that a treat meal can actually be important to your diet because an increase in the calories and carbohydrates can actually assist in jumpstarting your metabolism and regulating your fat-burning hormones. And you've probably heard this before, but you might not have understood why. So I want to talk a little bit about that why. Why does it stimulate your metabolism? Well, it can encourage the body to keep burning these calories instead of just adjusting to a lower intake. So with metabolic balance, we know that it's not a low-calorie nutrition plan. It's what your body adequately needs, and it's probably less than what you were eating before if you were looking to lose weight, okay? But it's adequate. So when you are eating those adequate amount of calories on a regular basis, or if you are trying to eat less, and many clients don't eat all of their bread, so they're getting a little less calories, the body will, instead of adjusting to that lower intake, it'll actually start to alter the certain hormones that are very important. And these are 2 specific hormones that are very important that we need to keep an eye on or be aware of, because if you eat very low calories consistently, these hormones are going to get out of balance. So they are responsible for helping to control your weight. And they need to be in balance. Otherwise, you will be overweight or you will be underweight. Okay? So the first hormone is ghrelin. And ghrelin is produced in your stomach. And it grows, it creates a growling in the stomach. So think G for growling, okay? So you'll get growls when you are hungry, and that is ghrelin that actually makes you hungry. So that's the hormone that is number 1. And the second hormone that is important is leptin. Okay, not lectin, that is something completely different. That's not a hormone, but leptin. Leptin is actually produced in your fat cells, your lipids. And it's the hormone that keeps you full, keeps you satisfied. So it's the satiety hormone. Now, leptin is kind of confusing though. It's really actually complicated because the more body fat you have, the more leptin you technically should have because it's in your fat cells. But what tends to happen is after a long period of time, you'll actually become leptin resistant. So kind of like insulin resistant. So the leptin hormone won't be as activated. You won't be responding to it. So your body won't tell you that you're full if you do have a lot of body fat. So you'll continue to eat more. Okay. However, when you cut calories, you usually will cut carbs, right? And when you cut carbs, the production of leptin actually reduces. So this is where it gets confusing because if the leptin reduces, then doesn't that make you hungry? Well, yes, sometimes. But leptin is the hormone that's responsible for telling your brain that you're hungry. Okay? So when you eat less carbs, you get less leptin production. But if you consistently give your body lesser calories than it needs, leptin will actually get suppressed. And then that's what starts to slow down your metabolism. All right, so you probably heard people talk about when their body goes into more of a starvation mode. This is exactly what we're talking about here. So if you consistently give your body lesser calories than it needs, leptin gets suppressed, and in turn, it will slow down your metabolism. So guess what happens? If it gets too low, you're going to get hungry. You're going to get cravings. So over time, your body will grow used to a lower calorie / lower carb diet, and it will start to adjust accordingly. And that's when we start to plateau. So oftentimes when I meet with new clients and we're one-on-one in the office, oftentimes I'll ask you, are you getting a variety of foods? Because the same thing kind of happens. If you're eating the same foods over and over, your body will start to plateau. We really have to keep your metabolism running, and we got to shake things up a bit. So a small treat meal, I recommend once a week. It helps to confuse leptin. So all of a sudden, the body will start to use up those fat stores and start burning, because it will actually realize, hey, there's more carbs coming every now and then. So I don't need to store those carbohydrates as energy. So I can go ahead and start burning those fat stores. And that is exactly why treat meals are important, because the body won't need to store your carbs for fuel anymore. All right. Number 2, guys, I said we've got 4. So this is our second reason that treat meals are important. So treat meals motivate us, right? More than that, though, they actually teach us how to live and eat with balance. So the one thing that is really important is that we do give ourselves a nice incentive to stick to our healthy eating plan. Just knowing that you have a treat meal waiting at the end of the week is always a healthy alternative, or a healthy incentive, I should say. It's not that we want to use food as a reward, because that's not part of it. But let's face it, there are times where we do crave something that's not on our metabolic balance meal plan, or that's not, for following a different nutrition plan. So it's a good incentive. But we have to remember to use a planned indulgence. You need to plan it to be able to use it as a motivator. It can't be willy-nilly, here I go. It's got to be planned, and that's when it's going to be motivating. Every treat meal should be appropriately planned. They shouldn't be framed as a free ticket to excessive eating, okay? And if it happens to be unplanned, and let's be honest, it's going to happen where you're out and about and you just decide, you know what, I'm here, I'm with friends, this looks really good on the menu, I'm going to indulge. To be responsible, you've got to adjust your meals on the following day. Okay, so for those who are following metabolic balance, in your binders, you've got the 8 rules to treat meals. And so some of those rules are very specific, in that on your treat meal, you would avoid your breads or crackers, and you would cut back on some of your fruit. So that's certainly something that you could do the next day after you've had an unplanned treat meal, okay? Number 3, treat meals give us a mental break, don't they? Sometimes it's nice not to have to think about what you're cooking. Sometimes it's nice to just breathe and, just kind of allow your body to guide you a little bit more. Constantly trying to resist your cravings can also be exhausting. And I've seen that in practice often, where clients are, craving, and they won't give in to a treat meal because they have a specific number on the scale that they want to get to, or a certain dress they want to fit into. And I think that's just so exhausting, and it's just so defeating, right? Because you feel like you haven't won the battle yet. So by indulging in a meal, you're able to relax. You can stop thinking about calories and simply just enjoy your food. Our 4th reason that treat meals are important and very much a healthy way to navigate through our nutrition plans is that treat meals will actually increase your willpower. Now, I know you're probably thinking that is not true, Melanie. Anytime I have a treat meal, it just makes me want to have more. Well, that may be true at times, but the fact is, it's actually going to help to train yourself for sustainable lifestyle changes. And this is the goal, guys. Practice, not perfection, right? We are practicing to be better at our lifestyle changes. We're not aiming for perfection. It's progress, not perfection, right? So when you start to utilize your willpower, you'll start to notice, yes, it's very limited, right? We only have so much resources for willpower. But when you give it a break, it actually gets replenished, okay? So think about that in other life situations. You know, maybe you have a heavy workload and you're doing some really late nights computer work at home after your work day is supposed to be done. You have the willpower to push yourself to do work on the computer until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. Maybe you're preparing for, something really big in your life. Maybe it's a wedding coming up or, a baby shower, and you push yourself. You have the willpower to say no to everything else. You say no to TV. You say no to meeting with friends because you've got a goal in mind. And that takes a lot of willpower. But you also know that if you continue on that path, you're going to get burnt out, right? So if you give yourself a break, all of a sudden your willpower returns, you're refreshed, you're energized, and you're ready to go. That's the same thing when it comes to treat meals. Give yourself a break every once in a while. You're going to feel more replenished. You're going to have the get up and go to carry on. So once in a while, be kind to yourself and say, okay, you've been on track all week. You deserve this. You've worked hard. You've done everything you set out to accomplish. It doesn't make you weak to indulge. In fact, it only makes you stronger. And again, most importantly, it's preparing you for the long haul, right? We're not changing our nutrition. We shouldn't be changing it for that diet mentality where we think that this is just a temporary place in our life. We have to find a mutual ground that's going to get us to our goals, but also something we can sustain long term. Whatever you did in the past, if you were overweight, if you were underweight before, if you were having digestive issues, low energy, if you were feeling like you had aches and pains or headaches on a regular basis, and you've changed your lifestyle, you've changed your nutrition, and you feel much better. Sometimes you have to realize that what you were doing before wasn't working. And so some of these changes that you've made, you've got to implement them long term. And you will be stronger for it when you have a treat meal on occasion. Because you know what you did to get here, and acknowledge what you must do afterwards to deserve it again. Okay, so you have to know what you did to get here where you are now and acknowledge what you must do afterwards to deserve it again. The key here though is that to treat, but to do it intelligently. So what does that mean? Intentionally planning for it, making some compromises. Give yourself those calculated planned permission to temporarily break those strict diet rules. Because the best nutrition plan is the one you can stick to, right? So now you know the importance of a treat meal. I want to talk about some hacks that will also play into some of those 4 reasons. So I've got 10 hacks to make the most of your treat meal without derailing all of your efforts. And that's really key there. We don't want to derail you. We want to help keep you motivated. We want to create sustainable habits. And we want to keep you going on your journey to better health. So number 1, remember it's a treat meal, guys. It's not a treat day, okay? It is not a treat day. It is one meal, preferably once a week. Number 2, predetermine when you're going to have your treat meal at least 24 hours in advance. That's going to give you the opportunity to plan ahead. If you are going to reduce your breads and your crackers the day of your treat meal, if you're going to have extra activity the day of your treat meal, if you're going to cut back on your fruit. But it also might be helpful sometimes to look at a menu if you are ordering from a restaurant. Look at the menu online the day before and really make a conscious decision what you're going to have when you're at the restaurant or when you order in, as we do so often now. So the reason why it's a good idea to determine that ahead of time is often we make the mistake of getting, our takeout when we are famished. And what happens is we make poorer choices. Not that any choice is bad, but it might not have been what we wanted to do. So when you plan, you're planning to succeed. Now you might plan ahead and say, yep, I love those burgers from that restaurant. I'm having a burger and I'm having fries. And yeah, maybe I'm gonna have all the bun as well this time. Or you might plan something different and say, you know what, I'm not really craving too much. I'm just going to have that burger, but I'm gonna have it on a lettuce bun, and I'll have a few fries of my partner's, and I'm gonna have a salad. So planning in advance, when you get to the point where you are going to indulge, you've already made a bit of a commitment to yourself. You're more likely to stick to your commitments if you've predetermined what they'll look like before you get into that situation where you're very hungry and having that treat meal. Number 3, I already mentioned this, don't be famished when you have your treat meal. Super, super important, guys. What do we do when we are famished? We make the most crazy decisions and we eat and eat and eat because we are so hungry. It takes 20 minutes for the brain, this is true, and you've heard it before, I'm sure, 20 minutes for the brain to realize that you've eaten. So we tend to eat very quickly when we're hungry, and we tend to make poorer choices because, everything looks so good and smells so good. So one trick to get around that, what you want to do is make sure you have at least a really big glass of water before your treat meal, okay? Don't decrease all your food earlier in the day just to be starving for that one treat meal. You can reduce your breads, your crackers, and some of your fruits, but you don't want to, totally skip your meals just to have a nice big meal that is considered a treat. The other thing that you can do as well, which is recommended in your 8 rules to treat meals with metabolic balance, is you'll want to have 2 bites of protein first before the meal. So that might look like, a few nuts. It might look like some cheese, something that is a protein. That's going to turn on your glucagon, and glucagon is a hormone that helps to keep you full. It also slows down your glucose, so you'll stay full longer as well. Okay, it's going to get you into fat burning. That's the other thing that glucagon does. So the 4th hack for treat meals is drink lots of water beforehand. The interesting thing, we talked about ghrelin, and ghrelin is the hunger hormone. Okay, just a reminder, it's in your stomach. That's where it's actually produced. And so when you have water, so if you're hungry, and particularly for those who maybe are even early in the stage with metabolic balance, and maybe you're getting hungry in between your meals because your body's still adjusting, make sure you're drinking your water, because the lining of the stomach, it actually has folds. So as you are, your stomach starts to shrink as you've digested your food, these folds kind of create almost like an accordion. And what happens is, in those folds, tucked within those folds, are actually the sensories that tell you that you're full. So when you drink a big glass of water and it expands your stomach, it actually turns on those sensors. So it tells your body that it's full. So make sure you have a big glass before your treat meal. Number 5, treat meals should be about compromise and compensation. So what does that mean? Well, I'm just going to pull up my notes here. I made a couple notes here. So most people tend to have an all or nothing mentality, right? And that's another thing that I really try to guide my clients with is to get away from that all or nothing mentality. We've got to find a middle road. You can't just be dieting or just be off the diet. We've got to find that middle ground. And the same thing with treat meals. You can't have a big overindulgent treat meal or, not have one at all. We've got to find a really good compromise. So that's where it might look like what I mentioned earlier with, going out and having a burger and fries. What is most valuable to you? For me, I know that I would love to have fries when I go out. I like fries. I'm not gonna hide it. I love to have fries. So I'll often have fries with a burger. I'm not a huge burger person, so I don't often order burgers, but I would love to have fries. I'm not an alcohol type of person. I would much rather eat my calories than drink them. So I would much rather have like a salad with chicken, steal a few fries from my hubby, and then have dessert, right? To me, I'm compensating because I'm having my salad, my chicken, but I'm skipping, the whole burger thing. I'm having a few fries, but I'm going to have my sweet dessert, whatever that might be. So it's really important that you are in tune with what you desire and make a few compromises. There will be times where you're just going to decide to go gung-ho and have the burger, the fries, and the dessert, but that doesn't work for everyone. And so this is where it's really on you to be very aware of your body. How do you feel after your treat meal? Do you feel achy? Is your digestion messed up? Are you tired after? Are you grouchy after? Did you gain weight, and how long does it take for you to lose that weight? These are all really critical questions that you need to ask yourself with your treat meals. As an example, if you do go gung-ho with a full out treat meal and you only gain a couple pounds and then it's gone within a day or two, well, kudos to your body did really well with that. But there are those who that does not work. Their body is usually more insulin resistant. And so they'll have a much slower metabolism, and it might take them 5 days to get back to where they started prior to that treat meal. So remember that you can compromise and compensate for your treat meal, and it's critical to get to your goals. So the other things as well I should have mentioned is, maybe have half of a dessert or half of a burger. Like you can make those adjustments so that in the end, you're still getting what you want, but it's more of a reasonable amount. Same with if you're a big coffee lover, Starbucks, the latte, frappe, whatever those things are, lots of calories in those. Well, perhaps you may have, instead of a latte, maybe you'll just do a black coffee and then have the dessert or something like that instead of both. All right, number 6, choose quality food. If you're gonna go out and enjoy yourself with a wonderful treat meal, make sure you're choosing quality. Typically, quality food is going to have less ingredients. It's also going to have better ingredients and more whole foods. So you'll find that they'll have less artificial ingredients, which is ultimately going to make you crave more. For instance, MSG, a lot of people aren't aware that MSG is actually used in the labs when they're doing research to fatten up rats. So it does turn on that signal to make you hungrier and make you crave more. And that's just one side effect of MSG. And MSG, I believe, has like 42 different names that it goes under. So if you're ever reading labels, it may not say MSG, it might just say flavor. That's how bizarre it could show up in a label. All right, number 7, treat on an active day. Okay, I'm not saying that you have to go work out to have a treat meal. That's not at all what I mean here. But what you'll have to understand is that when you are more active, your metabolism is going. It's going on a much stronger rate. You're going to feel good too. You're going to have your feel-good hormones going. So when we feel better, we tend not to overeat. We don't emotionally eat as much. Because a lot of people tend to think that, if they run like 10 kilometers at 10 kilometers per hour, let's say, that's going to burn like 500 calories. Well, if you're going to go out and have a 1,000, 1,200 calorie treat meal, you're still going to be in the negatives there. You haven't worked off enough calories to warrant that additional food, right? So, but being active, just having that active day and planning your treat meal on the active day can really help you out on the emotional level and of course on the metabolic level. Number 8, serve yourself, sit down and eat one plate of food when you have a treat meal, okay? What I mean by this is don't eat out of a takeout box. Don't wolf the pizza, you know, as you're standing up. Make sure you are having a meal. Enjoy it. Enjoy a solid plate, not multiple plates. Don't overindulge, but serve yourself. Make it a meal. And number 9 is don't drink a lot of alcohol. Okay, alcohol, it does change our inhibitions, but don't forget, depending on the alcohol, you may be choosing ones that are fruitier or have pop with them, so you're getting a lot of liquid calories that often you're not even realizing is in that drink. I will tell you, and I don't know why this is, but I tend to find that my ladies who are wine drinkers tend to lose weight slower. And I also have found that when they do start drinking more wine, they tend to plateau a lot faster. And it seems to be more with wine rather than with the hard liquor. There's not a huge difference in calories there, depending on what they're drinking, but it's just an observation that I've had. And I do believe it has more to do with the fact that, you know, there may be that unconscious eating going on when the alcohol is flowing. And lastly, guys, enjoy your treat meal in the presence of positive company and make sure it's without guilt. You know, when we think of treat meals, we often do think of socialization. It's a big part of our society. So another reason to plan, have it with your friends, have it with your loved ones, make it a positive experience, but make sure it's without guilt. And if you are eating out, you know, when we can get back into restaurants, but when you are eating out, make sure that you are aware of that portion. You know, if you are being served a really big plate, you'll want to make sure that you eyeball your portion and, you know, make that commitment to yourself that you're going to eat the portion that is adequate. And while you're doing that, you'll want to listen to your body signals. So often, especially when we're engaging in wonderful conversation, we often will eat past our comfort level, right? Our stomach is probably telling us we're full, but the food is there, so we'll continue eating. So one trick that you might want to do is actually maybe take food off the plate before you start eating it and say, okay, this is what I'm eating. Maybe put it in a takeout box or just off to the side. But that way you'll be better able to gauge how much you actually ate, and mentally you'll know that you should be full, even if your brain hasn't actually told you yet. And most importantly, make sure, again, that you are enjoying your treat meal without guilt. So be intentional about every bite that goes into your mouth. Savor it, chew it well, enjoy the smell, the texture, the taste. That's all mindful eating and being very intentional. But also, in addition to that, as I mentioned, you know, be intentional with what you're choosing. What is it worth to you? What are you craving? A lot of times, once we start with metabolic balance, we actually find that our taste buds change. I've had this happen a number of times where, you know, for instance, one of my clients, it was wine. She had a wine cellar full of her favorite wine. And when she started with metabolic balance, she no longer liked it. She said it tasted like vinegar. But that can also change with other things. You might notice that some things are too salty. You know, some of your favorite foods might be too sweet now. So be very intentional. And based on that, then you can decide whether you're going to continue eating it or perhaps whether you're just going to leave it be. But most importantly, you just want to enjoy every bit of it. So choosing to have a decadent meal every once in a while is good for the soul, but it should be enjoyed on occasion. Just remember, it's not every day. It's not an entire day of treats, right? Learn to fill your days up with healthy foods that you look forward to eating, learn to experiment and make those substitutions. You know, there's a lot of ways that you can substitute your so-called unhealthy foods or your treat foods. You can also substitute them with a healthier version. So remember that the best diet is the one you can stick to. So this is practice. When you're on your journey, you are practicing to learn to stick to a nutrition plan that you can sustain long term. All right, guys. So I'm going to open up the video and we'll do some Q&A. So let me just stop sharing my screen now. I'm going to open up the mics. And if anyone is interested in asking me any questions whatsoever, the microphones are open. Some of you, I can see that you've turned it off at your end. So if you're going to talk, you may have to open up the mic at your end. Any questions, guys? Anything at all regarding treat meals, regarding metabolic balance? No questions. All right.
I was just thinking about what you said about the wine. I'm thinking about the red wine. It might have some sugar. It might be a reason why, because I was looking into it last time when I was diet.
Yeah, and that's true.
Yeah. Some of the red wines, they do have a lot of sugar, so that doesn't help.
It doesn't. And my question too is, does it raise it more? Because caloric wise, like a true glass, and this is the key though, it's a true glass of wine is what, 4 ounces, I think. So yeah. A true glass of wine is about 120 calories.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if you have a shot of whiskey or vodka or something like that, I believe a shot is about 60, 80 calories, 60, I was going to say. Yeah.
If you do vodka, it's about 60, like a good clear vodka, it's 60.
Yeah. So the caloric isn't really a big difference when you look at the calories.
Sugar.
Yeah.
It's a calorie.
But most calories come from sugar. So that's the other thing where I'm like, I'm not really sure I understand where that's all happening, but I know it. I notice it a lot. So you noticed it as well, Anne Marie?
Yes, like we talked last time. You know, you got to debate where are you willing to take that gain? Because I'm battling this. That's why I joined this, because I'm battling it, and I'm still having a struggle because of my last treat meal. It was pasta.
Yeah.
And I am still having a hard time losing what I should have.
Okay.
So
did you have a whole plate of pasta?
My last treat meal, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
With bacon, with mushrooms, with hot dog, with garlic, with everything. So, and a glass of wine. So guilty. No, I enjoyed it, but like you said, is it worth it then the struggle to lose because I'm still battling to lose what I gained from that meal.
And that was how long ago?
That was what? Almost weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
That long, eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm still working on it.
That's excessive. So this is where, and I think we talked about a little bit, this is where we might want to figure out, okay, are you gluten intolerant? Was it a gluten pasta, right?
God knows. It was my favorite restaurant. So it was like, I loved it. I wanted it. So that's what I did.
So it wasn't
gluten-free. That's what I'm learning now. Like for me, this is a learning curve, right? Like I like to have my glass of something, right? With it. I like my red wine. So, but it was such a held back from my diet, right? And I'm still drinking extra water just to get what I should have been.
Okay. Yeah, so that is a really prime example. Like that's a really long time to still be recovering. So my thought there is, next time you want to have pasta, really reduce that portion. No, still enjoy it, but then keep an eye on see what happens again, because if it does, have a portion of nice salad with it, a nice protein with it, and just do this pasta as a side. But then see what happens, because if you are gaining and it's taking that long to come off, that is a really good indicator that you're intolerant to something you ate.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Or
that
next time, try gluten-free pasta, and then that would, you know, maybe answer that question.
I didn't die for it. You know, I can live without it. It wasn't it was one of those things, but lesson learned.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Melanie, is it healthy to eat gluten-free if you're not celiac disease?
Well,
does it not have more sugar in it? That's what I was always under the impression, it contained more sugar.
The breads may, for sure. The breads, they will sweeten. The pasta, I don't believe they will have much of a difference. So here's my thought. Gluten-free has its purpose. And if you are intolerant, that's one thing, right? If you are celiac, it's an autoimmune, and you have to avoid gluten if you are celiac, because when you have gluten, it actually stays in your system, I believe, for like 2 years. So the effects of it can last for 2 years. So that's how long it will actually hinder your immune response. So celiac, absolutely, for them, it's detrimental to do gluten-free. Now, if you're gluten sensitive or gluten intolerant, you may not necessarily be gluten sensitive or gluten intolerant. You might actually just have a wheat issue. Okay, and this is where I'm of the mindset, like, figure that out. Is it wheat because you're having wheat that's sprayed with pesticides? The glyphosate's really hard on our digestive tract. Is it, you know, it's very hard for us to find products that are actually organic wheat. So you can test that out by trying rye, by trying spelt, by trying other organic products. And so is it not healthy to have gluten-free products if you're not celiac? It's not unhealthy, but it's not necessarily healthier. So I think that's more what you're getting at. Like, if there's more sugar and stuff, are you getting something healthy just because it's gluten-free? No. Absolutely not. But I'll tell you, like, for myself, I feel better when I have gluten-free pasta. I'm not a huge pasta lover. Like, I never buy pasta in a restaurant. So when we have it at home, it's more of like, kind of like for a treat for the kids, or a bit of like a convenience food. But I feel much better when I have gluten-free. If I have a plate full of regular pasta, unless sometimes I'll buy the European pasta that's actually from Europe, I won't feel like the bloated, I won't feel the fatigue after. So that's a really good question, Paris.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions, guys?
So I have a question. This is Ngozi. Hi, Melanie.
Hi, Ngozi.
What are your thoughts about like fasting after a treat meal? So like fasting the next day.
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah. So with metabolic balance, what do we encourage you to do once or twice a week to do an extended fast? So I'm on the positive end of that. I do believe that fasting can be extremely beneficial for the body on many levels, you know, for our DNA and everything else, for telomeres, for reducing inflammation. So I have no problems doing that. Some people might do the opposite. They might have their fast day on the day of their treat meal. But again, you got to be careful that you're not hungry, right? Because then you might overindulge and just totally undo what you did. So yeah, I think that's perfectly fine. I would do one, like, just basically skip one meal if you're going to do an extended fast. That would be the maximum I would skip.
Okay.
Yeah.
Melanie.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, it's Marg.
Oh, hi, Mark.
I'm about the fasting days. Like, normally when I fast, I just drink water all morning.
Yeah.
I was doing some reading from, you know, other books, and they say that, I don't know if this is good for the metabolic balance, but they say on a fast day you can drink black tea, water, or black coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that we can do?
Yeah, you're probably referring more to intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting does allow the coffee or tea. And you know, there's, as you just pointed out, there's so many different views on fasting. So I think it's going to depend on what your goals are. Like a true fasting, typically it's just water, you know, if you're doing a water fast. So I think that's an individual decision that you'd want to make on your own. For some people, if they have coffee or tea, they might actually get hungry because it technically could spike your insulin. So you just want to listen to your body and make that choice for yourself.
Okay, well, that's good to know then, because I usually just drink water. But this one day I had a cup of tea, and actually I felt so full after. Like it encouraged me to go like even 2 hours longer than I normally do. So I thought that that was a good thing. But I mean, I drink my tea black anyway, so.
Good. And it wasn't an herbal tea, like it was just like a traditional black tea?
It was a black tea, or
Okay.
I only drink green tea or black tea, but I don't really drink herbal teas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mark, I'm the same way. If I drink tea, it really fills me up.
Yeah, it's funny how that works.
Yeah.
So Paris, are you saying it fills you up more than even water?
Yes.
Interesting. I wonder if it has something to do with the warmth, you know, relaxing your stomach muscles a little more or something like that. You know, there may be something.
Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
It's more soothing or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or even like feeling like maybe it's a psychological thing that you felt like you had a treat. But I don't think so for me. I felt like, oh, I feel great now, like sustained.
I
agree with that. I'm like that with coffee. I can live on coffee.
Really? Margie's like, yes, I can see you shaking your head, Margie. I know you like your coffee. All right.
Oh, Melanie, I got another question. When we started the program and they tell us the amounts of, you know, protein, carbs, fats that we're supposed to be eating, is that calculated based on your starting weight or the weight that your target like weight?
It's definitely based on your starting, for sure, because it can change. So I think we may have chatted before, you know, do you need another plan, right? Will you have that same plan for the rest of your life? So I have had people who've lost, you know, 100 pounds, and at that point they would start to plateau. And so we would request a new plan and their amounts would change. And sometimes, yes, their ratios would change too, because it's not just about calories at that point either. It's about what are your nutrients that you're requiring. And so typically, and not always, but typically with more weight loss, there is a lot of health changes as well. But I've also seen that in some people who've only lost 40 or 50 pounds. I've had, I'll say 2 people in my practice so far where by 40 or 50 pounds, their lab numbers drastically changed, and then they started to plateau. So we did request a new meal plan, and their macros changed drastically. So yes, initially it is, but like I said, I've had people get all the way up to 100 pounds, and they were still having the same results that they were, you know, trying to achieve. So.
Okay. Yeah, because when I count when I look at the food choices that I have and I count out the grams and like I put like sample stuff into my Fitness Pal, like it generally works out to be about like 1,900, somewhere between 1,600 and 1,900 calories. And so part of me was like, well, that's less than what my resting, you know, to not lose weight caloric intake is. And so arguably I should continue to lose weight if I'm sticking in that calorie range. But, you know, I've been reading stuff about macros and, you know, how that changes. You know, they usually tell you to like adjust your macros every 10 pounds lost. And so, you know, I'm at like 75 plus pounds lost. And so I'm just wondering if maybe I.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah, she's doing amazing. Amazing.
Good job.
Thank you.
Wow.
So, and sometimes that's what we'll do, like you and I, if we find that you're not feeling like you're moving along like you should be, we may just make that adjustment at our end and start there. And oftentimes that's all we need to do. And sometimes it's as little as 20 grams. So, you know, 20 grams isn't a lot, right?
Yeah.
But, and then don't forget though, you're already figuring that out, but you're very active right now too. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I will tell you, like for myself, my meal plan from my first one I got and then the second one I got 5 years later was very different. I had more veggies on my second plan and less protein. So that was interesting to see that shift as well.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions, guys?
We were talking about plateaus. Like, I think with this, okay, like I don't think I got one, but like, you know, like, but you can reach one. I was reading on the internet, like it's one good thing would be like to reboost the metabolism would be to fast for 24 hours.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, you certainly can, right? Think about what we did when we started Metabolic Balance.
Just
What we
reset. It's like a button.
Yeah, we did a reset. Yeah, we
Yeah.
did the cleanse. We did the soup basically for 2 days. It's shocking your system. And then we add the food in, right? So that's kind of the same idea. It's just a little bit more drastic to do a full day of fasting. But I'm not against that. I do believe that there's some benefit to it.
Yeah, that's what I read. It's like a lot of anti-inflammatory, a lot of positive, good for the health, actually. Like your blood pressure, your heart rate, everything. Yeah.
And that's why Metabolic Balance is so successful, because we get you to fast 5 to 7 hours, right? Totally the opposite to the way I was trained, but those are all the reasons. They do a fasting period within your day to day. So the only thing that I will just say is you've got to be careful that you don't get in the mindset of stopping and starting and relying on having a reboot all the time. Sometimes you have to let your body do its thing. I often won't term someone in an actual plateau unless it's been minimum of 2 weeks and more closer to 4 weeks, because usually by the 2-week mark we'll try to make some adjustments, and if there's nothing lost in the 4-week mark, then I'll say, okay, something's going on, you know, and what can we do to sort this out? So very rarely do people actually plateau if they're following everything that they're supposed to be doing. Like it's pretty rare. I won't say it doesn't happen, because it does, but it's not that common. All right. More questions, guys? No? Okay. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining tonight. You want Margarita? You're muted.
Hi, Melanie. Okay. Sorry, I have a question.
Oh, there you are, Fiona. You're pointing down to Fiona.
I was trying to hit the keyboard. It wasn't working. Does anybody have a favorite place to get lamb? I'm having trouble finding it in the store.
No, I don't eat lamb.
No one, eh? Yeah, so I
try the European market.
Ah.
Okay, thanks.
Just as a suggestion. They have good stuff. They're very organic oriented.
Yeah, Brand Nurse, like I mentioned to you before, Brand Nurse might also have lamb. And trying to think, like some of the smaller, you know, private.
What about Ted Farron?
Yeah, that's another.
They might have some.
Yeah.
I get lamb from Metro. They have a New Zealand 100% grass-fed Springvale lamb, and it's really good.
At Metro, you said?
Yeah, so it's called Springvale. It's New Zealand lamb. It's 100% grass-fed, no antibiotics, no nothing, and it tastes amazing.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Thanks, ladies.
Guys, thank you so much for hopping on tonight. I'll post the next one for next month, probably in the next week or so. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you all. Let me know if you have any other questions. You can always chat with me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melanie.
You're welcome. Thanks, ladies.
Take care.